All right, if I could have everybody's attention, I want to thank everybody from the news media who came today. I want to thank members of the House Republican and Democratic caucuses for coming to this press conference today, and more importantly, coming together on one of the most important issue, I think, that has affected the state of South Carolina for a very, very long period of time. 35 days ago, this House passed the Ratepayer Protection Bill, and it did a couple of things. It was a thoughtful bill, it was a constitutional bill, it was an effort to deal with the nuclear collapse in Jenkinsville, South Carolina. It had 5 moving pieces, but one of the most important pieces of that bill was that it provided immediate rate relief for the citizens of this state who've been paying a nuclear premium for too long. We passed a bill dealing with and reforming the ORS, the PERC Committee, the Public Service Commission. We've created a consumer advocate. The House, for a period of 6 months, has worked tirelessly on this effort. And in return for our hard work, these bills that we've sent to the Senate have received essentially one subcommittee hearing. There's been no hearing whatsoever on the House Ratepayer Protection Act. Instead of dealing with these bills that the House worked so hard to craft, the Senate essentially sent us a one-page bill back, Senate Bill 954, which the House dealt with today. What this bill does is extend the deadline for the public service hearing for the private sector merger of SCE&G, SCANA, and Dominion. It does nothing about rates for the citizens in South Carolina. In fact, if you adopt this schedule, citizens of the state of South Carolina will continue to pay the nuclear premium much longer without relief. Today, we decided that we will take the Senate 2-paragraph bill. We thought long and hard about how we needed to respond to these 2 paragraphs, whether we needed to essentially attach our bills that we've been working on for 6 months, that have been sitting in the Senate now for well over 30 days, or whether we do something else. And what we did was essentially decided that we will take their dates if they will accept our experimental rate, which goes until December. We will take the date if they will take the experimental rate. And as we explained on the House floor some 36 days ago, the ratepayer in South Carolina shouldn't have to pay 19% of their bill when a portion of that 19% is based on return on investment. When a portion of that 19% is based upon rate increases that were done after the Bechtel report, a portion of that 19% not even payable today because of the federal tax changes. So our experimental rate takes this rate from 19% to 0 to give our ratepayers finally some relief in South Carolina. That's the only issue that we're asking the Senate to deal with. Again, we've taken their dates. We are asking them to take their rates. The math on this is quite simple. Ratepayers have paid $267 million since the failure of this project in July of last year. They pay $1.2 million every single day for a project they will get no benefit of. They paid $42 million since the House bill putting the experimental rate from 19% to 0 was sent to the Senate. $42 million they have cost the ratepayer because of their inaction. I want to congratulate the hardworking men and women behind me, Democrats, Republicans, who've come together on this issue. That's the South Carolina House. This is the leadership arm of the General Assembly, and I'm proud to lead this body. I can tell you that they've worked hard this year. We passed 2/3 more bills that the Senate have. We've got a number of bills sitting over there. We wonder where our computer science initiative is. We wonder where our bill is dealing with the superintendent of education. We've got a lot of bills we want to talk about, but today we want to talk about this bill and giving them one clear choice, and that is to reduce the rate. Remember, we're taking their dates. We want them to reduce the rate. And I'll call on Mr. McCoy, who will then call on Mr. Ott. Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Folks, last August, the Speaker of the House gave Chairman Ott and I one simple objective. The objective was this: do everything you can to study this issue with a goal and a priority to protect the ratepayer. Protect the ratepayer. It's a simple phrase. The House has acted. Look behind me right now. These are Republicans and these are Democrats who stand behind me. It's not a partisan issue. This is a South Carolina issue. And the folks behind me have acted and studied the issue, and I commend every single person behind me for what they've done in taking action to protect the ratepayer. What we did today was simple. Absolutely a simple idea, a simple concept. The Senate sent over some dates. They want to study the issue longer. We'll take their dates. Give us a rate decrease. That's what South Carolinians deserve. That's what ratepayers deserve. Listen, the problem I have is this. We've all heard and read the headlines of what's happening with SCE&G. We've heard and seen what they've done when they've testified in front of us. They tell us they're going bankrupt. But then 2 weeks ago, they issued $87.5 million in dividends to shareholders. That's an absolute embarrassment. And the House is not standing for it. The House has acted. We have given the Senate two options, two paths. And I encourage them not to take up just one, take up both. We sent them over the Baseload Repeal Act review prospectively. We've sent over what we did today in terms of taking the nuclear premium to zero. Give the ratepayers relief. It's simple. The time to act is now. I'm proud to have served with Chairman Ott and the rest of the Utility Ratepayer Committee. I am proud of the South Carolina House for acting swiftly, and I hope the Senate watches and sees what we have done and takes immediate action. Chairman Ott.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I'll be brief. Here's the bottom line. Several years ago, many years ago, 2009, an agreement was struck. An agreement was struck that we would have utilities in the state of South Carolina that would build and provide nuclear reactors for our citizens that they could depend on. In return for that, our customers, our constituents, would allow themselves ultimately to be charged on the front end for those financing costs. We know where we are right now. Part of that deal was not delivered. Those nuclear reactors are not going to be built. So the bottom line is, if they're not going to be built, we don't believe that our constituents and the customers of those utilities should have to continue to pay. That is the bottom line. That is the direction that we have been moving in consistently since the beginning of this issue. We understand that the Senate is taking their time. That's okay. The bottom line is, we're saying while that time is taken, we simply want to do what is right by our constituents and take the burden of the 18% off of their bills. It's just simply not right. They aren't going to be provided with the reactors that they were paying for. They shouldn't have to continue paying. If a deal gets broke, both parties end up with the responsibility of it. And the problem with this situation is, right now, the customers are continuing to pay. And what are they paying for? They're not paying for reactors. They're paying for a company to continue to make profits and then send some of those profits back to their shareholders. That's simply not right, folks. We understand what the Senate has done. We support that. We simply ask that the Senate, in the meantime, support us in standing up for the ratepayers and removing that surcharge from their bills. Thank you.
Once again, we find ourselves in the position of leadership. The House members behind me, Democrats and Republicans. When it came to infrastructure, reform, and funding, the House led the way. When it comes to protecting the ratepayers of South Carolina, the House has led the way. I'm joined with Minority Leader Todd Rutherford and these members behind me in the House of Representatives to implore the Senate to remember who you work for. Amen. And you work for the ratepayer and the taxpayer of South Carolina. All right. $42 million since we passed 4375. $1.3 million nearly per day that the ratepayers and the taxpayers are losing in the state of South Carolina because of inaction in the Senate. You see the doors over there? They're locked. That's what we face right now. It is time for action. There is absolutely zero reason that the Senate should not act. They've been talking about chickens, and I'm not talking about gamecocks. That's their priority. It is time for action. It is time to show the people of South Carolina that they are in charge.
Yes.
And that we work for them. Yes. Thank you. Mr. Ruffin.
Literally, I could just stand there and say ditto to everything the majority leader said. And I think that's important when you notice that it's the Speaker of the House, the majority leader, the two chairs, co-chairs of the Ratepayer Protection Committee, and Gary Sembrell and myself standing here asking, begging that a branch of this General Assembly simply do something. He already pointed out that the doors are locked. Well, I have walked over to the Senate, like many of my colleagues standing around and wondering what it is that they're doing, and on a regular basis see them doing absolutely nothing. When I go to the grocery store, when all of us go out in our communities, people want to know, what is it we're going to do about SCE&G? Well, the House has acted. The House continues to do its business. We did it again today. What we want, what we demand is that the Senate simply do something. Send us something that we can report back to the taxpayers, to the ratepayers, and say, this is our answer. This is what you have to look forward to for the rest of this term in order to pay for this project that has already failed. But what we continue to get is nothing. What we're asking for is something. Not a whole lot. We don't expect much of them, but we simply do need something. Thank you.
Questions for any member? All right, great. Thank y'all for your time.